So every now and then there's a keyboard that comes in my possession that I'm just like, damn, I didn't think I'd like that layout. And the Wind X is one of those keyboards. Now they classified the Wind X as a large layout keyboard, which I'm not really too sure what they mean by that, but essentially it's a FR4 1800, but not really at the same time. It's kind of like a southpaw, but not a southpaw. It's on the right side instead of the left. It's an interesting layout, I really like it, but the construction actually surprised me the most about this keyboard. And you might miss this part at first glance, but if you look at the specs of the keyboard, there's actually two PCBs connected with a ribbon cable where they break out the numpad, which actually provides a unique typing experience with this keyboard. Now this keyboard does have a lot of stuff inside of it, which we'll go over as we disassemble the keyboard here and kind of break it down for everyone. But there's a lot of stuff inside the keyboard that surprised me that I didn't need. Now that's not to say that you might need those as well. I actually opted to not use one part of the keyboard that was supposed to be mandatory, and it ended up working anyways, just because I didn't like my last experience with that mandatory part. But there is some optional pieces here which I think a lot of people will get a lot of different sound profiles from, which is pretty cool. But I'm gonna get excited here because there's one thing that this keyboard does that I wish every keyboard would do, and we'll get into that later on in the video too. And if you're looking for more information about this keyboard, this will be in stock as well as a group buy purchase. Now, there will be 200 units slated for in stock purchase with mixed colors, as well as 300 for group buy with no color limitations. But I'll leave a link to all that info in the description down below. But let's get into the keyboard itself, shall we? Now, this is the Wind X, and honestly, it looks pretty good from the top, but it looks even better from the bottom. But the one thing that I really liked about this keyboard, and if you visit their Keycaps page, is it has a lot of different color options, some of them which I've never really seen in keyboards, being like this bright orange. I actually really like this color, and it really matched the key set really well that I chose to use with it. Even the brass at the bottom is pretty subtle. It gets larger on the inside, which helps break up some of that sound, but even the namesake here on the bottom is well done. I think it looks pretty sharp. I really like the way this looks. Now, I did most of the unboxing on stream, but if you guys were interested to see what that box looks like, this is what it looks like here. It's pretty simple, looks pretty nice. The unboxing experience is pretty standard fare. You get a lot of stuff on the inside here. Some stuff we opted to not use was actually the PE foam, which if you guys want to know what a PE foam keyboard sounds like, they typically have a more marbly sound signature to it, which wasn't what I want to do with this keyboard. And they also include that same PE foam for the numpad. Now here's that piece that I opted to not use. It's a piece of silica gel or whatever this particular material is. I think this one here is the silica gel. But these things here are supposed to help increase the plate width from 1mm to 1.5mm, which is pretty standard in what you'd find in keyboards. And this is to help lock the switches in place so there's no slipping of the switches. Now, I didn't notice any slipping of my plate when I put on mine not using the material, but I do recommend if you guys are having problems before soldering this in, that you guys can try installing this first and see how it feels. But yeah, mileage might vary with this. Up to you guys if you want to use it. It might change your sound profile a bit. I opted to not use it. Totally up to you. One thing the keyboard actually came with a lot of, which kind of nice in the future I guess to have, is a lot of gaskets. It came with an obscene amount of gaskets, stuff that I don't even need for the keyboard. But if you guys ever have problems or you guys are having maybe some issues with the actual keyboard itself that you need to swap out a gasket, at least you have some extras, so that's kind of nice. But that's pretty much the unboxing experience. There wasn't really much to it. If it was more interesting, I'd probably elaborate more on it, but it's a normal unboxing experience. Alright, back to the keyboard, and let's disassemble this so I can show you guys what's inside. So after removing our screws, there's a few more things we have to do to really clean this up. First of all, there is a bottom piece that's attached to this too, which the screws go through. I didn't love this extra bottom piece, so it makes it like a 3-piece assembly. It is to kind of give it that split look in the middle where the orange can peek through, but I didn't love this. It wasn't the easiest to install. It's kind of a nuisance as well. I do wish this wasn't here, but I understand why it's here, so I don't mind it. Next, we have our top frame, which seems to have an interchangeable badge up here. I'm not too sure if they'll be offering other colors, but this one here is brass. I would like to see this as an optional color as well. I think that would be really cool. And the last thing to note is how many gaskets are on the keyboard. There are some doubled up ones near the numpad, but there are pretty plush gaskets and they work very well. So before we get into this unique PCB assembly here at the bottom, I do want to kind of touch base on what's going on in the bottom of the case here. There is 2 layers of foam. One's this very thin piece of foam here, which I'm assuming is supposed to help with any sort of contact of the bottom of the case. But you guys can see this, if we take this out, it exposes this beautiful brass weight here on the bottom, and it really makes this whole orange bottom kind of pop. Now, whatever color you guys get, obviously it'll be that color, but I really like this. It looks really good. And now another thing I didn't love about this keyboard, which you guys can kind of see where the fault lies here too, is how this daughter board shifts around because these enlarged screw areas. Now, I don't really know a great way to combat this, as I understand why those are there is to help to align this, but I didn't love it because it doesn't really make good contact. You really have to screw this in tightly, and I don't really love that about the keyboard. So if you guys aren't careful, this will shift, making for an uneven USB-C cutout. Now to correct that, we're just going to be sliding it back into the right place here. Again, I would have liked some sort of locking mechanism or just easier way to put this in, but hopefully for now it holds yet again. Now the more interesting part here, and I really like the way they did this. I'm not sure if this was intentional or if they knew this ahead of time, but I love the way that they used two PCBs with a ribbon cable to have a numpad as well as your standard 65% style keyboard. But there is some finessing you have to do with this during installation of this, which I'll show you right now as well. Now comes the weird part, which is placing this PCB with the ribbon cable into the actual case itself and attaching the daughter board cable all at the same time. I know, it sounds like Mission Impossible. But I'll show you guys the easiest way that I found to do it, just with a little hyperlapse here. Now, one thing to mention too, as you lay this down, there will be some extra foam that kind of bunches up if you opt to use the bottom foam. Just be super careful that all lays flat as this goes down, or else this will end up kind of being up on an angle and won't close properly. Again, super weird. I don't love this. I wish they added some more cutout area for the foam itself. That way there the JST connector cable can pass through easily, but you should end up something like this. Now I'll give you guys a quick little typing demo of this, but the full typing demo will be at the end of the video. And that's the Windex, which I hope you guys ended up liking. It does sound really good as well as it feels even better. I do think it lends more to a soft typing experience with the keyboard rather than a firm one. And if that is your cup of tea, I do think the Windex is definitely up your alley. And I want to sum up everything with a few notes. I do think there's a lot inside the actual box that can give you a variable sound profile depending on how much foam you use, which I think is a great thing to have, especially in a custom keyboard world. And to all the people who are probably going to be like, but you shouldn't lean on foam to make a keyboard sound good and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter. You don't have to buy it. This is not for you then. I honestly think that using foam in a keyboard is not a bad thing at all. If you want to alter the sound profile, if you want to mod something, it's your product. You do it. You paid the money to do it. If you don't like it, there's other products available. End of story. And I want to touch upon one last thing that I thought was awesome about this keyboard, and that's the exposed stabilizers on the plate itself. Now, if you've ever run into a situation where maybe you've accidentally not installed something correctly stabilizer-wise, or just wanted to go in and touch something up, or swap out your stabs, you can do that with this. It actually has enough room that you can actually disassemble this case, take out the stabs without having to desolder or remove any switches. It has that on every single stabilizer point on this keyboard. I think this is an awesome and most welcomed addition for the keyboard, especially for beginners who maybe want to dive into customs. But I really like the fact that I can go in and fix or swap something out in the event that something happens to one of my stabilizers. But I do think that's one of the only beginner-friendly parts about this keyboard. I do think the keyboard itself was a little bit more tricky and has a lot of nuances that you have to install correctly, again, like the JST connector, like the actual ribbon cables and stuff with the two PCBs. It made for an interesting build experience. By no means is it difficult, but it definitely was not super easy. Now, who's this keyboard for, and would I buy this had I not been sent one? Yeah, I definitely would have. I've been searching for a keyboard with a numpad, and I think this fits all of my needs in terms of sound, feel, as well as having numpad, obviously. And I've been saying I've been wanting an orange keyboard for a while, and this comes in orange and this dark gunmetal gray, which I absolutely love. I'm in love with this color. This thing looks great. But hopefully you guys liked this video. I've been kind of stressed lately about a few things and I haven't been able to make as many videos as I wanted to. You know, life happens, I guess, but hopefully I'll be able to do more. And if you guys like this type of content, leave a like down below, leave a comment, subscribe, do whatever you guys need to do. And until next time, see ya.